This is what we've got for you in today's show.
One of the things about AI is it doesn't get anything wrong. So when I had a human narrator, they would sometimes change the order of a sentence, and it's still
Yeah,
right, but it's not what is in
yeah,
the book.
yeah.
With AI, that does not happen ever.
Welcome to the All Things Books Show, hosted by award-winning best-selling mystery author Dawn Brooks. Publishing has changed beyond recognition in recent years. Join Dawn as she interviews authors, narrators, and many more from across the creative community. This inspiring and informative show is for readers and writers.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the All Things Books Show. This week I've got an interesting author who writes 15th century historical mysteries, and he's also just recently experimented with producing an audiobook using artificial intelligence. So we'll ask him all about that. So I'll bring David Penny in. Hello,
Hi,
David. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yes, I've been at a conference all weekend since last Thursday.
So you're tired as well as motivated.
Yes,
motivated but tired.
Yeah, it tends to be 2 a.m. bedtimes and 7 a.m. getting up. So yeah.
Oh, blimey, you must go to better conferences than I go to.
Yeah.
I never stay up that late.
They were still trying to shut the bar and throw us out.
But, yes, I can imagine. I've read a bit about your dissipated past. So, right. So, so David Penny, he's been writing for many, many years. Moved to Mid Wales in his younger days, and he had an obsession with science fiction initially, and managed to get a traditional publishing contract where he published 3 science fiction books. We might ask him a little bit about that in four science fiction books. We'll ask him a little bit about that in a moment. He then I think he lived the swinging 60s life from what I can gather from his bio, before he had to settle down and get some work, and later married and did a Open University degree. And then David worked in a boring job, according to him, not according to me, for many years, which he's now retired from, and doing what he loves again, which is writing. So, and obviously we want to come on to this artificial intelligence audiobook, David, but let's start off. So your science fiction interest, did that wane? Did that go away?
When I was young, I used to read nothing but science fiction. And therefore, when I started writing, I wrote science fiction. But when I'd stopped writing, which was about 1979, 1980, I still read science fiction. But by the time I got to 60, when I started writing again, I didn't read science fiction anymore. I only read sort of crime novels and historical mysteries and stuff like that. So that was what I started to write when I came back to it. I still might write science fiction, and I still have some ideas, but at the moment it's historical mysteries.
Correct. Historical science fiction. I bet that's a new one.
Interestingly, I nearly did an alternate history, because in the series I'm writing now, Prince Arthur and Catherine of Aragon are in it. And as everybody knows, Arthur died after 6 months. And if he hadn't, he'd have been a really good king, and there would have been no Reformation, and Henry VIII would never have come to the throne. So it would have been a totally different world than we have now.
Oh, well, there you go.
But I chickened out.
Yeah, you get a lot of naysayers, I guess, although actually it might be very interesting to read.
Yeah.
So you tend to write 15th century history, don't you? And your main character is Thomas Berrington. So tell us a little bit about Thomas, and then we'll go on to the first series before we move on to the second series.
He's an Englishman who, at the age of 13, his father goes to fight in the Battle of Castillon, which in France, which was the very last battle of the 100 Years' War. Except in those days they didn't call it that; they just called it the English-French War. Yeah, his father was killed, and Thomas was cast adrift at 13, and he finally ended up in southern Spain and trained to be a surgeon in the infirmary in Malaga, the Moorish infirmary, and that's where it started from. And the idea came to me in like one instant flash of inspiration one night. We were sitting at home, and I've no idea why, but I said, has anybody ever written a detective novel set in Moorish Spain? Wouldn't that be good? They sort of looked at me as though I was a bit mad. And I went and did, I'm not an historian, so I had to do an awful lot of research. And decided, yeah, there's definitely enough history there to write, at least 10 books. Well, maybe 10 books. In the end, it ended up as 9. Because towards the tail end, there wasn't as much history as I would have liked. So I had to compress it a little.
Yeah, so you say you're not a historian, because I was going to ask, was the Open University degree to do with history? Obviously not.
No, that was maths.
Maths?
Yeah. I failed maths O-level 7 times, but I've got a degree in maths, which is bizarre.
Okay. So tell me about Moorish history, Moorish Spain then, because I'm sure me and most of our listeners will not have a clue what that means.
Yeah.
We were having internet fluctuations, so I've moved downstairs, David. So can I ask you that question again? Tell us about Moorish Spain.
Okay. Some people know about it, some people don't. I think people who've been to Spain and visited the Alhambra in Granada will have some inkling that it was a Moorish palace. But the whole history is absolutely fascinating. In about 740, the Islamic North Africans came across the Straits of Gibraltar and invaded southern Spain, the southern tip of Spain. Okay. Within about a year to 18 months, they had defeated all of the existing Visigoths that were in Spain and ruling it at the time. And they actually got as far as Poitiers in France. And then either the French threw them back, or they thought it's a bit wet and cold up here, and they retreated back to the Spanish Iberian Peninsula. And they ruled the whole of Spain, most of Spain and Portugal for, well, probably 400 years. And then everybody knows the story of El Cid. And he was a he was actually, there's a rumor that he was a Moor, but he started fighting, and the Catholic Spanish slowly pushed the Moors down and down and down until they ended up in just what we know today as Andalusia. And that kind of remained until the early 1400s. And then from 1482 onward, there were a series of battles at Ronda, Malaga, all sorts of places down there, and obviously Granada in the end. And they gradually pushed them back until in 1491, Granada was the only part of Moorish Spain remaining. And then they walked into the Moors, the Isabel and Fernando, the Catholic monarchs, walked through the gates of the Alhambra on the 1st of January 1492, and the same day Columbus came in, and they gave him the money to sail across the Atlantic to see if he could find the Indies.
Wow!
So fascinating, and there's an awful lot of history there.
Sounds like it. And your series, the first bit of the series with Thomas, what years does that cover? And what portion of 1482 to 1492. So 82 was really the beginning of the final push of the Christians to get rid of the Moors altogether. Okay.
And people came from all over Europe. It was like when they went to Saladin, and it was another battle like that, and people came from Germany and England and France and everywhere to join in, because to be part of that reconquest that guaranteed their place in heaven should they be killed.
Wow. So the Moors were Muslims.
They were, yeah, Islamic, yeah. And they, at the time, particularly earlier, sort of 10,000, 1,000 universities and the best scientists and the best painters and everything else in the whole of Europe. And it was, you know, Europe was then in what we call the Dark Ages, which weren't really dark. But southern Spain and Arabia had amazing discoveries and medical discoveries, and there's all sorts of things going on. There's actually a record of, in 1000, some guy in Cordoba created the first hang glider. He flew it 1.5 miles and then brought it back, and he said, I'm going to go even further this time, and crashed and killed himself.
Oh, as they did in those days, trying to...
I was going to say, as they did, yeah. But it actually flew. You can find images of it. It's an amazing thing.
That's incredible. So, and then following your books, where was Gibraltar at this point? Was that British or was that under
Gibraltar?
Spanish
Gibraltar was one of the first places that the Spanish took. So it's just beyond the borders of Andalusia at the moment. But they came in from the west quite a long way. So they took Cadiz, Jerez, Sevilla, Cordoba. Cordoba was one of the first places to fall in the south. So even though they're in Andalusia now, the Andalusia of the Moors was a much smaller geographical region than it is today. Yeah, wow. Ronda was about the most westerly part of it.
And so, was it this war or the end of this war that moved Thomas back to England then? Because that's when you right, okay. So why did Thomas come to England? You mentioned Catherine of Aragon.
I did, and during the books, Thomas met Queen Isabel and Fernando. So Isabella Castile and Fernando of Aragon, and he befriended Isabel, but Fernando hated him, and he in the second book in the series, he was called upon or sent by the Sultan to help the Prince Juan, who had broken his leg, and it had been badly mended. So Thomas broke it again and repaired it, and he could walk again. And so he sort of befriended Isabel. And then as time went on, they got closer and closer. And so he knew Catherine of Aragon and all her other daughters. And so the book's finished in that 1492. In 1500, Catherine of Aragon came across to marry Prince Arthur. And Isabel asked Thomas, would he come and keep an eye on her and look after her and protect her, which he did. And that moves the book's series. So there's a 9-year gap, which I may go back and fill in with a few short stories or novellas or something. And so he arrives on English soil.
And you've got 2 books in this new Tudor series.
I do. Yeah. And I'm working on a 3rd at the moment. Yeah. And it's weird. They sell really well in the UK and the US. And I think I do translations into German. No, not at all. Germany is my biggest market. I've met a guy who runs a translation agency. Really nice guy called Joseph Alexander. And he set up a business called Translate Books. And
I know of it. I might have him on one day.
Yeah. He's a good guy. And I've now had 10 books translated into German, which means I haven't made a profit in the last 2 years.
It's
but
expensive, isn't it, translation?
Yeah. All 10 of those books are in the top 50 of historical thrillers in Germany, which is amazing.
So they are making money, but you're just not in profit yet.
I'm in profit now.
Oh, you are in profit.
I'm doing another one. I've caught up. So I've caught up the 9 books of the first series, and it took about 18 months for the translators to do the work. And so I've had to pay for 9 translations in just over a year. Men of Bone was translated and went up about a month ago. And interestingly, I changed the series from the Thomas Barrington Historical Mysteries to the Thomas Barrington Tudor Mysteries.
Yeah, I saw that.
And in the UK and the US, that made no difference whatsoever. As soon as it came out, it went quite high and then stayed high. In Germany, I released it as the Thomas Barrington Tudor Mysteries, whatever that is in German. And I didn't sell anything in the first 5 weeks. And I thought, this is weird. So I changed the series and put it into the Tudor Barrington Historical Mysteries as book 10. And all of a sudden, bang, the sales took off. So there must be something different between the UK and Germany, that maybe they follow a series but not an author or something.
Maybe the Reformation sort of had something to do with it.
Yes. They're still getting us back for that.
Yeah, well, good old Luther. Moving on from that. So you've now, you've got audiobooks in the what I call the first series. Obviously, all these books continue because they're all Thomas Barrington. But for the sake of listeners, the Moorish series in Spain, the 9 books, you've got audiobooks for all of that series. And you paid a narrator, presumably. Now, and you've got 2 books out in the Tudor series. And is the first which is the book you've used artificial intelligence?
The first in that Tudor series, Men of Bone.
Right.
And it was of necessity, really. My narrator, Mark Topping, lives about 10 miles from me, and we're quite friends. But he did the last book for me, and then he did my weird World War II paranormal thriller book. I'm not doing much narration anymore, he said. In fact, he said, you're my last client, Dave. And I said, well, don't feel obliged to keep doing it if you don't want to. And he said, oh, thanks, I won't. He's an actor and he's getting a lot more work.
Oh, yeah, because during COVID, actors
exactly,
were short of cash, and they took on, because I've got an actor who's narrated 2 of my private investigator series, but I know he's a lot busier now as well.
Yeah, and that's the gold standard, really, is to have somebody who's an actor to do it, because they're used to doing voices and characterization, and that's exactly what you want. But without Mark,
so
I thought,
what the heck made you go for AI then?
A couple of reasons. I read a post by Jo Penn, who was looking at it, and she said it is very good indeed. And then I investigated. It's Deep Zen is the firm that I went with. Right. And I listened to some of the voices, and I listened to some of the samples, and I thought, these are okay. It's not perfect, but the jury is still out, because you can't sell it on Audible, obviously. No. So I have it for sale on my website, and it's going through Apple Book validation, I think, at the moment. And I think Kobo Audio will sell it, and so on. So there will be copies.
Will Findaway, does Findaway touch AI? Findaway voices, or haven't you used them?
I haven't used them, no. The Deep Zen, you can pay, I think, £40 a year, and they take care of all the distribution. So they're an alternative to Findaway for the distribution of the audiobooks.
Oh, I see.
And so
that makes Deep Zen are distributing.
Yeah, I think Findaway would want you to employ a narrator through them, or I don't think they take AI voices yet.
No, they do take independent, because I always publish Tracy X first, and then I move mine into Findaway as well.
Yeah. I thought it was worth a try, because it's a quarter the price of a narrator, but it's not as good, but it is pretty good. Yeah,
I'm coming on to that then. So what sort of cash are we, because yours are quite long books, aren't they? They're about 500 pages.
I think the first one's 118,000 words, Men of Bone.
Yeah.
And it was just over £1,000 to have it narrated.
Through AI.
Yeah, and they do everything, so they check it and do the studio work and everything else. And they send you copies, and you go through. And there were a few glitches. One of the things about AI is it doesn't get anything wrong. So when I had a human narrator, they would sometimes change the order of a sentence, and it's still right, but it's not what is in the book. With AI, that does not happen ever. But you sometimes get a little sort of noise, and you have to listen to all of it, and then they fix those once you tell them what's wrong.
So you are still allowed. You still do approve the final content.
Yeah, you do. Yes, yeah, you do. Although they don't give you long to do it. I was a bit annoyed. I think it was around Crime Fest time that I had it, and so for 4 or 5 days I didn't do any proofreading of it. And when I came back to it, they'd actually published it. And so I had to get in touch with them and say, no, you can't do that because I haven't finished it yet. I think they just want a high turnover. Yeah.
And do you choose the voice?
You choose the voice, yeah. There's a number of them, male, female, American. There's even Spanish voices, and Portuguese and so on, and Scottish accents. But you choose one voice.
Yeah.
And I think if somebody listens to the sample I've got up on YouTube, I've played it to several people over the weekend at Harrogate Festival, and they all said, no, I don't like artificial voices. I don't, and I played it to them. They said, that doesn't sound like an artificial voice. That sounds like somebody's actually narrating it, and it is very, very good quality until you get to dialogue, and then all the dialogue is the same.
Yeah,
so what my narrator used to do, he'd vary the voices, and he'd use accents, and he'd raise his voice a little bit for a female, and it makes it better. Whereas this is just one thing. So I've emailed Deep Zen and said, is it possible to like mark it up? Because there's a couple of other AI places, but the voices aren't as good. And could you say, so that the narrator would raise the pitch for a female voice, for instance, and I'd be happy to mark it up to do that. Yeah. And
what have they said?
They haven't got back to me.
No. Yeah. I mean, I guess we have to say for listeners,
probably the AI is still thinking about its answer.
Yeah, because it's actually run by a robot, the firm.
It is, yeah. There's no people at the other end. It's run by the guy who said that DeepMind had become sentient.
Yes. So
now Google have sacked him.
Yeah, I saw that. I read that in the news the other day. They'd sacked the guy. iRobot type thing, isn't it? The robot has feelings or can have feelings. So
yes.
So moving on from that, then. So when you decided to go down the AI route, so say we've got authors listening to this and thinking, oh, I'd like that a bit cheaper, but obviously I can't make any money yet on Audible, and distribution might be limited. But say that they were thinking about it purely in terms of cost. What companies did you look at, and why did you opt for Deep Zen? You say they're the best.
Yeah, I looked at Deep Zen. I've got another one I use, which is Natural Readers, and I use that for proofing my books. So I put it through their AI voice. And do the whole of the book from start to finish at the proofing stage, and then I listen to it as I read it through, and it raises all these little issues that you might have with it, and it really helps. And they do have a version that allows you to mark up the text, so you could use a female voice for a female character, and they have quite a lot of voices, but they are not. If you listen to Deep Zen and then listen to Natural Reader, their voices are not quite as good in Natural Reader as Deep Zen. But the Deep Zen voice I used is a guy called, it's an actual digital version of a real narrator.
Yeah,
so it's a guy called William Birch, and you have to give him an acknowledgement in it.
Yeah, and I have heard that people are, in fact, Joanna Penn has done it herself, hasn't she? That rented their voice to companies like Deep Zen, and that narrators can actually approach the company and rent their voice. So if they're concerned that, oh my goodness, I'm not going to have any income in a few years' time, they can actually make money.
They could actually do it. Yes,
by approaching companies like Deep Zen, and either they can use their voice, or and maybe going a bit hybrid like some authors do with digital publishing and self-publishing. So you did a bit of research, and having gone through this process, and obviously you've hit a few sticky wickets now, would you say that it's not quite ready? Would you say it is ready, or would you say it's better for non-fiction than fiction at the moment?
If it's non-fiction, it's fine.
Yeah,
I would think there's I think you would struggle to differentiate a non-fiction AI narration from a live narration. For fiction, I'd say it's not yet ready. Unless in my case, I mean, if I sell the book on my website for $4.99, which is quite cheap for an audiobook. And then I've got a link to somebody who takes care of all of the money issues and so on. I've done it really for those of my readers who will only listen to audiobooks and will not read. They will not read it on Kindle. They will not read it on print. And so, if somebody really wants to have an audiobook of Men of Bone, then it's available there. It's I would say it's 85% fine, maybe 90% fine, and it's better than not having the audio at all.
Yeah, but if we think about it critically, say Audible did start to accept, and Amazon started to accept, 85% fine probably wouldn't do for a lot of reviewers who avidly listen to audiobooks, or do you think that's just for the finicky people and that it might be okay?
I don't know. I've not had any feedback on anybody who's listened to the whole book yet to say whether they didn't like it. So it's difficult to say. If it was me and it was the only thing I got, I would probably find it acceptable. If they're used to a good narration on Audible, for instance, they will probably be dissatisfied with it. So it's difficult, isn't it?
Thinking back to your fans of the first series, then they might not like. Would you consider, having gone down this road, do you think you'd do it for the second book, or do you think you'd rather?
I don't know.
Now look for another narrator.
Yeah. If I considered doing it for the second book, I would go back and have it redone for the first book as well. And
you do that?
A common narrator through the season.
Yeah, can you do that?
Yeah, there's no reason why not.
You can pull out.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't. We could just withdraw it from sale. It's just another version, isn't it? So they don't distribute to Audible.
And you don't sign up with them that they can distribute this book, say, for 5 years or something, and you can't have it?
No, I don't think so. I'd need to double check it, but I don't recall. It might be a year. But it does. I mean, there's no downside for them because I've paid them up front. It's not like a profit share where you need to recover that money. Yeah, they've had their cash, and I don't think they'd mind. They've had the cash. It didn't matter if I spend another $4,000 to get another narrator and do it myself.
And do they take?
I can't have the money back.
Do they take a share of the distribution fee? So, say, like, Find a Way, when they distribute.
They do.
So it takes a small percentage.
I think, but it's 5%.
Okay. Now I know people like Joanna Penn are very keen on AI, and she's done quite a few audio books using AI, but she also records, I don't know whether she's used it for fiction or just non-fiction.
I saw her at the weekend and I never thought to ask her. But I would say it's not ready for fiction yet, even though that's what I've done with it.
Okay.
As we said before, non-fiction, I say it's 99.9% there.
Yeah.
For fiction, it's not. Yeah.
So if you were a fiction author that's absolutely strapped for cash, you've heard about lots of readers needing audiobooks, but you really, really can't afford a narrator. Would you recommend it, or would you say hold off until it's better, or save up the money?
Save up. It is a quarter of the price. But that means you still got to pay a quarter of the price for a product that is maybe 85% as good. And that's your calculation to make. I'm in indie terms, I sell pretty well. So the fact I can toss £1,000 into this as an experiment is not much of a problem for me. Basically that's what I did. I've done it as a trial to see what will happen and what won't. But to be honest, I haven't done any publicity for it, so it would help if I did.
Well, I suppose the thing is, though, if you're not 100% happy with it, it's hard to get your marketing hat on and push something you're not totally happy with, isn't it?
What occurred to me, it would be interesting when you talked about Amazon and Audible, because they're all under the same umbrella.
Yeah, sure.
Amazon is the biggest IT services company in the world.
Yeah.
And they have artificial intelligence. They have Alexa.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
yes,
stop.
They do. Yeah.
Because I got one up on the wall there.
Yeah, so
and their voices are very good. And their intonation is as good as the one I've used, I would say. So I would say eventually Amazon will start offering AI narration as part of their services.
KDP. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're right, and that's probably why Audible are saying no, we're not having it, because
we're going to do it. We want to do it ourselves.
Behind the scenes, they're doing it themselves, as they do.
I think if on this one you could have a little bit more intonation with the dialogue, so that you know that it's a female speaking, or a child, or an old person, or somebody who lives in Herefordshire. Or somebody who lives in South London or wherever, I would be perfectly happy with it. That's the thing that I miss coming from a real narrator to the AI version.
Yeah, because actually, that's what I mean. I write cozy mysteries set on a cruise ship, so it certainly wouldn't do for me, because the accents are all over the place.
Exactly.
And my poor narrator has to try and research accents from all over the world. So, Alex Lee, if you're watching this, don't panic. You are still my narrator. I'm not going down the AI route just yet.
No.
So, but it's worth the experiment, I think. As you said, you did it as an experiment.
I think so.
It was worth a try. Might not be ready for you yet, but I'm sure Deep Zen and other companies, there are other companies available, will be taking feedback from people like yourself and other people who paid good money, because although it's a quarter of the price, they are competing.
It's not cheap,
Yeah. It's I mean, if you add editing, cover design, etc., almost as expensive, if not a bit more expensive than publishing a book, self-publishing a book.
Although I was looking at somebody today and they've spent $1,200 on a cover. And I thought that's quite pricey. It is a nice cover, but it's quite pricey.
Yeah, I know.
Spend any idea there.
No, I don't either. But I know that some cover designers really do charge, I guess, for the skill that they're providing. Because if they produce a best-selling cover of a book that goes to #1 in the Amazon charts, I guess. Yeah. Then
it is, yeah. And they know what they're doing. It's like the engineer who's called in to fix a ship, and he went down it and he looked at it and he got his hammer out and he went whack, and then sent a bill for $10,000. And they said, "What? You just hit it with a hammer?" He says, "Yeah. Okay, I'll give you a new bill. Hitting with a hammer, $10. 25 years of experience, $9,999.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think I think many. Yeah, and that's what many people don't realise about. We could get onto the subject of authordom and book prices and ebook prices and how people some people can expect an author to more or less give away their work, and what they're forgetting is that it takes months, if not years, to produce a book and a lot of expense. And if you count the time of that author, then it's we won't.
It's interesting.
Go on.
I'm in a small group of authors through Brian Cohen's Ad Course group, and we have like a support group, and we're all pushing our prices up now. And we're finding we're still making just the same. So some used to be $2.99, and we're all up to a minimum of $4.99 now, if not $5.99. And we've seen no particular drop off in sales at that level. In fact, we're selling them for more than a lot of independent presses put their books out at.
And it's still less than a cappuccino in some places.
Although to be honest, I never buy that argument, Dawn.
Don't you?
Because it's no.
You need the coffee. You need the coffee.
No, it's not. No, it's not that. It's comparative value. People are used to paying. We got 2 coffees. It was admittedly on the motorway services, and it was $7.89 the other day. But you don't think about it in that sense. You don't compare buying a cup of coffee for $4.99 with buying a book for $4.99, even though the book is far, far better value. It's perceived value, and expected value, I think, isn't it? So, I'm not a big fan of the "it's less than a cup of coffee" argument, but you're right, it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I use that example really just to say to people, look, you're willing to spend all this money, not that they should forgo the coffee to buy a book. If it's either
they need something to drink while they're reading.
Either or, I'd have my tea. But as you say, it's comparative and perceived value. But if you think about a $4.99 ebook, it's still a lot less than a paperback version for still half price for a paperback version.
Definitely. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I like Stephen King, and when he gets a new book out, you look at it and I think, oh, I'll get that on Kindle. No, it costs more than it costs more than the hardback to get the Stephen King's new ebook. And I think you're joking, so I wait until it comes down to $4.99, which it will, but I might have to wait 2 or 3 years to download it. Otherwise, I'll buy the paperback, which is less.
I think that is a common trait in traditional publishing, isn't it? Because
it is.
If you look at Richard Osman's books, you can buy the hardback at a real good discounted rate, but the ebook is like $9.99 or more in some cases.
No more than that, I think.
Yeah. So, and you think, no, I'm not going to buy that as an ebook, and you wonder if that's the trad publisher's way of saying, don't buy the ebook, by the print
It is,
book.
yeah. I don't think they like, and I'm not sure why, because they must make more profit on an ebook than they do on a hardback or a paperback, because the production costs are negligible.
Except that they can produce such huge quantities of paperback books,
and their business model is based on selling physical
books
copies.
in store. Yeah. I think that's the initial thinking. When a new book comes out, hardback first, get sell as many copies. That's why they make you wait a year for a paperback, which infuriates me because I'll only buy paperbacks, and I'd have to really, really, really love the author to buy the hardback.
I always, when I go to something like Harrogate Festival or Crowd Fest, I will always buy hardbacks, at least 2 or 3, because it's part of the experience. And we were really fortunate. There's a guy I like called John Connolly who writes very dark crime thrillers. And he was there signing the books. And my friend and I went in and we bought this book, brand new, first edition, not out for 3 weeks, all marked as first editions, and they're signed by him, or he signed it, and he puts a dedication in that is personal to each person that buys it, which is fabulous. Really nice guy. But I now have a signed first edition, John Connolly.
Wow. Okay, so we've moved right off AI. We've moved right off your books. And we've covered pricing.
Talk about yours then?
No, we won't. We won't talk about that. Although that's very kind of you to offer. But so just going back to Thomas Barrington, what's next? You say there's a 3rd book coming up in the series.
Book, which is
don't hold out for the audiobook, people, because it's
no.
Wait for the narrator to come along. Yeah, so the 3rd book is
3rd should be out this year. Yeah, The Hidden Dead. I always start with a title, so I always check nobody else has ever used it. So all of my books have a unique title apart from The Red Hill, which is the first one. And every single one has nobody else has the title or had the title when I published it. They might do that. And this one, it moves the story on. So there's going to be, I don't know how many there will be, but I have this inkling that I would like to send Thomas back to Spain, because that's where his heart lies. And I'm probably going to then morph into the William Barrington historical mysteries when Henry VIII comes to.
Will William be? Is that Thomas's son, or
yes, he is.
William?
Yeah, William Barrington. It's his son. He's currently 18 in the book I'm writing now.
Okay.
And he has a daughter, Amal, who is 14. And it might even be the William and Amal historical mysteries, and they'll be like a team.
And what we didn't touch on is, because yours they're not just historical fiction, they're mysteries, aren't they? So how did you research the actual investigation of crime for that era? And does Thomas do the investigating?
He does. They all do, because he's got all these people around him. It's like there's maybe, I keep adding characters. I got to kill some off because I can't keep track of them anymore. But it started out with Thomas and Jorge Olmos, who's a eunuch, and they were like a Holmes and Watson, and it's moved a long way from that now. So Jorge is still there, but William and his daughter Amal are really the detectives alongside him. And Thomas is a pretty useless detective, to be honest. He's not very good. Useless, yeah.
So, So basically, it's an amateur sleuth type mystery.
Yeah.
I
think so.
Like similar to what I write, except maybe a bit gory, with it being back in the Tudor period. Do they come
I tend not to write gore.
You don't? Okay.
They do come to a bloody end, but I do not describe it. I've read, there's a lot of historical stuff that revels in gore.
Yeah.
And I won't read them. Yeah, I won't read them. And some people have reviewed it and said, oh, it's far too explicitly gory for me. And what it is it feels like it might be, but there is no physical description of anything like that. There's no blood. There is blood, but it's you don't see it being spilled. You don't see people being cut in two and stuff like that. And so that's how you do it. But yeah, it's doing the research is difficult. And I've actually found a site, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's online, and I've signed up for it. It's about £100 a year, and it publishes academic articles. And I've filtered it to be 1450 to 1550. And it comes up with things like the development of medieval modes of justice. And it goes through like that. And there's another place, I don't know if you've heard of the Paston letters. You wouldn't unless you write historical mystery stuff. No. And it's 200 years of actual letters written between the Paston family, who were part of, on the edges of the royals, all the way from about 1400 up to the middle 1600s. And there's a lot of like gossip in there. So you go in and you're pulling out what were the crimes of the day. And it's and the one I'm writing now is about quite timely, maybe, corruption in the Catholic Church. And I found a reference, because you read and read and read and read and read for this. I wish I'd written a contemporary, actually. It's much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I found a reference to a priory with nuns in Yorkshire that was broken up because they had created a brothel. And they were only caught because their income was 5 times what would be expected of the land they owned. And so actually that's in this book, but it's been relocated to Herefordshire. Yeah. And it's a cause of the murders. Yeah.
So you will stick with historical fiction for the foreseeable future?
For the foreseeable future, it pays the rent. It's more successful. As we alluded, I've done another series, but there's only one book in it. And I have a police procedural trilogy, all plotted out, and the first half of the first one written. And I might go back to that. But it's difficult when you can write a Thomas Barrington and you know on the day of publication you'll sell 1,500 or 2,000 copies.
I know.
It's very, you don't want to go and do something that might sell none or two.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. Yeah.
I think that does become a dilemma as you write more books, doesn't it? Because I have the same dilemma sometimes, because I can publish a Rachel Prince mystery, and as you say, between 1,500 and 2,000 at least on day one, and then whereas I have branched out into spin-offs, and initially the comparative sales were a fraction. But I'm sticking with them for now, and we'll see if I can build up the readership of the others, as long as I keep Rachel going for now to pay the bills.
There is. You do carry some readers with you, but not all of them. And weirdly, at Harrogate, I met a couple of people, and there was this one guy, and he's actually a playwright, so he writes plays for the BBC and stuff, and the stage. And he was saying, "What do you do?" So I told him about Thomas Barrington, and he said, "Oh yeah, that sounds interesting." And then I told him, and I'll also do this World War II paranormal spy thriller. And he said, "Oh, that sounds good." So I told him about the spy. He said, "Oh, I love that." Yeah, and he hunted me out the following year. He said, I just got to say, I really love that idea you've got. Some people like it. Yeah, some people.
Have you written that under a different name? Out of interest?
No, same name.
Right, I didn't see that when I was searching you.
No, it should be. It's under my author name on Amazon. On my Amazon page.
Okay.
But it doesn't come up linked to Thomas Barrington because it's totally different.
No, of course not.
Totally different.
Yeah.
So
it's
what's
basically
that one? About a bunch. An Imperfect Future.
Okay.
And it's basically a bunch of terrible paranormals whose psychic abilities are almost meaningless. And the main character can see 10 seconds into the future, and that's it at the beginning. And everybody says, well,
I could probably do that.
Yeah.
On guesswork.
It comes in handy because he's a bombardier in a Lancaster in 1944.
Oh, okay.
And so they never get hit by flak or by fighter fire. And his bombs always land exactly where he wants them to, because he can see he's missed, and he adjusts in that 10 seconds.
Wow.
And he gets recruited for this Unit 13 organization, which has other people with pretty useless powers, unless they're all put together to work in conjunction with each other.
That does sound interesting. That does.
It was fun writing it.
Have you got any of these books to hand that you want to hold up, or I'll just direct people to your Amazon page?
Yeah, here we go. That's An Imperfect Future.
Okay.
Is it the right way around?
That's it. It is the right. No, it is the right way around. Is
it? Oh, good. Yeah.
It's looking good.
Yeah.
Wow, I like that cover. That you don't pay $1,000 for. You did not.
No, I did. Yeah, I didn't. I did it myself.
Right, I'm going to be employing you as my cover designer.
Well, it's the only one I'm satisfied with, and it's the image that I've got on it. And it took me ages, but I've got some good cover designers now I use, and they're dirt cheap, so I use those all the time.
Brilliant. We may talk off air. Right, I think we're at 53 minutes, so I mean, I know I've got to cut some of this out because we got cut out earlier on, but where can people find you, David, other than Amazon page? DavidPenny.com.
DavidPenny.com,
Yeah, DavidPenny.com and Amazon.co.uk or .com, or if you're in Germany.
In German, Amazon.de,
and if you want the actual German translation as opposed to the English version in German, you can buy that too. Are they translated in Spanish?
They are. The first two are, but like we said right at the beginning,
they don't sell.
Yeah. The Spaniards aren't great readers. I did Germany because it's the second highest readership level per capita in the world.
I did hear
Finland is the highest, but they've only got about 2 million people. So.
Yeah, who speak Finnish. Yeah. Sorry, Finland. It's not that we don't value you. It's just that we
can't make enough money off you.
Sorry, we can't make enough money off you.
Yeah.
We're very ruthless as British.
Yes.
So, well, thanks for joining me, David. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. So that was an interesting interview with David Penny, and we discussed lots of different things as well as AI. But if you're interested in Tudor history and historical mystery fiction, which really does sound quite fascinating, I think it'd be worth picking up some of David's books. And if you're into paranormal future and want to look at his World War II book, I think that sounds fascinating as well. If you're an author who's interested in AI, you've heard from David. Obviously, the choice is yours. But it may not quite be ready for fiction yet. Some will disagree. If you do disagree, please comment. And if you've enjoyed this chat and this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel to get more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.